So for those who don't know me, my name is Kevin Nguyen. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Mortgage Division with ERS. Tonight we're going to cover part 4 of 6. So we're going to go over the basic mortgage fundamental, and not exactly how you do a loan, but more or less how do we do it here at ERS. And I'll kind of go over the syllabus for you guys to check out. Tonight I'm going to kind of cover how do you generate a disclosure signing packet after you've already done the initial consultation with your client. You've already requested them to send over your credit, income, and asset documentation, and then you prepare them with a loan option, which they've chosen one, and you're going to provide them the official disclosure so you can meet up with them and actually submit the loan to underwriting. And I'm going to take a step back 1 second here to show for those that are a little new. If you guys go to that Dropbox, if you guys have an issue, let me know, but I think you guys are okay, able to do that, to download that. I'm going to pull up the mortgage training schedule to kind of recap. And I just like to do this for those that are kind of jumping in, because we do these on a rotating basis. For the schedule, it started beginning of February. We did a new hire orientation, and for that new hire orientation, we went and set up your laptop. It only works on Windows. We'll do a 4-hour of that, and these are mandatory for those that are joining us on or after February 1st of 2014. We do a 4-hour class for that, and we'll get you all set up. And part of that day one, we do the training on the consultation. How do we do it on a modern way style, not kind of ask them your name and social and so forth. Then we also cover how do you review the credit income documentation, which you get from the borrower. Then we covered last week with how to price it out with our pricing engine, which we use as Loan Shifter. And we also use our preferred loan origination software, which is Calyx Point Central. And it's centralized, so all documents are there shared with the processor. Today, what we're doing is after we've selected it, I will show you how to generate the disclosure. It's pretty software intensive. If you guys, you guys are watching this video, you probably want to pause it, kind of catch up with what I'm doing, and then do it at live, hands-on. But for those attending it live here, I'd probably say just take some notes. There are training videos that calyxsupport.com provide. However, they're very generic. They're not very specific to what we do here. So if you need a little bit more training, you can go there too. So that's what we're covering, and then next week we'll cover about how do you process it. So today, the overview, what we're going to cover are the following, and what we're going to cover are we call it DSP. It's the disclosure signing packet. It's about a 30-page packet that you sit down and you talk to the client. And within that packet, there are these disclosures that are required for loan submission, which is the loan underwriting transmittal summary. Is also known as Form 1008, which the form number is just kind of like your IRS, your 1040. This one is just Fannie Mae came out with a number 1008 is stuck. The loan application is called the 1003, which is the 4-page. If you have more pages, it might be 4 or more. We have the GoodFaith Estimate, also known as the GFE, along with the Truth in Lending. The Truth in Lending is the TIL, and the act itself, the regulation, is called TILA. You hear people say that quite a bit. The MLDS stands for Mortgage Loan Disclosure Statement, which is for California. We do that. And so if you're watching and you're from another state, you might not have that. Print groups, I'll show you how to use those. The print groups is very simple. You don't need to remember what's in the disclosure. We've already did the thinking for you. Hit a button and it prints out all the required disclosure. Additional broker lender disclosure, that should be one sentence there. And then let me just correct that. I kind of hate typo. There you go. So there's additional broker lender disclosure, depending upon which lender that you use. They have their own. So you don't want to come back to the client a second time and say, hey, I forgot a few disclosure. So we'll show you how to get those disclosure and how to fill it out. Once you get everything and you've already analyzed the credit, income, and asset documentation, you want to update that list and say, hey, Mr. Borrower, thanks for meeting with me today. In addition to signing these things, we're missing these items too. So then next time, within a few days, they can send you those additional documentation. And usually if you do it right, you time it right, they'll give it to you right before the underwriter actually sees the file, because there's a process where it'll get registered and then it'll sit in line for the underwriter to review. And then we'll show you how to open escrow. And the open escrow is for more or less refinance. You don't have control when it's purchased. Usually the buyer's agent would do that for you. So that's what I'm going to be covering tonight. And we could have done screenshots, but I think when I show you on the actual software, it's a lot easier for you to kind of, when you're actually doing it yourself, know where to navigate. So we're going to go into it. I'm going to show you the end result of what a DSP should look like, and then how we're going to generate those. Okay. So let me go ahead and sit down here. And feel free for those joining us back on the webinar, if you have any question, stop me. Just ask the question, and I'll check it periodically. Okay. And for those in class, just speak out. Just say, hey, I got a question. No need to raise the hand. Just go ahead and shout it out. I need my handy cheat sheet. Give me a second here. While this thing's loading up, I do want to let you know what you guys are getting on your Dropbox. These are the stuff that we've mentioned in the past training session. And right now, while the back office is slowly being updated, I've just shared it with you guys. It's a public link. You can share it with anybody. It's really not that important. Not anything where it's a proprietary. It's just on our form, on our header. If you go into these packet, these are the one that we shared before, so feel free to just go in there. We're going to go over some of them tonight, but those are the extra kind of items that we covered in the past. Tonight we're going to use these two in particular. And so with a new file, I'm going to take you from, or let me pull up our. So the final product of what you're looking for would look something like this. And this is your loan application. And I'm going to just kind of zoom out. It's kind of blurry, but I'm just going to give you the idea. This is your 4-page loan application. You'll have your request for the transcript, your truth in lending, your anti-steering, your fee worksheet, the intent to proceed with application, borrower signature, the Patriot Act, the credit score disclosure, the notice to home applicant, the disclosure, which is the standard disclosure. We have affiliated or ABA, affiliated business arrangement disclosure, mortgage broker business contract, standard disclosure, mortgage loan origination agreement, ECOA, which is Equal Credit Opportunity Act, how we protect your information and how we share it, along with the right to receive a copy of appraisal, servicing disclosure statement, and this is the MLDS, the fair lending notice, the real estate agency disclosure, Social Security form, and then there's additional lender disclosure that we'll cover. And what I'm going to do,
all these forms they have to fill out beforehand?
That the loan officer would. Yes, so the loan officer, that's what I'm going to teach you how to fill out. So the question was, are all these forms what we as the loan officer have to complete before meeting with the client? Yes, that's correct. So there are additional form there, and if you fill out most of this, it would work. And before I fill out this information, I want to make your life a little bit easier. You're going to have these fields here. It will start here, but I moved these 5 up to make it easier when you're done with your loan application. You can just work it down here, and that's what we're going to do. So in order to rearrange your toolbar, and I'll rearrange it here, if you go up to your utilities, down to where it said customize shortcut toolbar, and you can move it. Just go down there. I want you to write down the word fees worksheet, anti-steering disclosure, good faith estimate, truth in lending, and requests for tax return. Those are the 5 items that you want to move it up. And I put in that particular order because that's the flow that you would go through. Okay. What I'll do is I'll actually take a screenshot. I'll put it back in the Dropbox for you guys.
This is in Calyx Point?
This is Calyx Point, yes. Boom. You here for class dinner? Leaving?
No problem.
All right.
I'm overqualified. My son is working on his license once he got it.
Sure.
Then he will do it.
What is this called here? The navigation panel. Okay. So I'll save this here and I'll put it up there for you guys. Okay, and would somebody mind that's on the webinar? Can you guys go? One of you guys go there and just let me know. Just hit yes. You can see it. I don't know if I have to reshare or not. I'm pretty sure you guys can see it, but it should look something like this. You guys do that. Okay. All right. Once you guys rearrange that, make sure you don't hit the smart list. If you do, it'll sort the most recent one on top, and it'll kind of mess up your flow. Don't check that box. By default, it's unchecked, but just make sure you don't check it. Show scroll bar. That should be default. Leave that alone. Hit OK. And I'm not going to go through a blank file. I would assume that at this point you would have already entered in the information, the credit, income, and so forth. What I'm going to actually take you through today is filling out the other information, which are these over here. Last week we covered the fee worksheet, so I'm not going to explain it again this time around. I will be actually just kind of skimming it through real quick. So on the note rate, we'll just pick one of these here. Okay. You know what? Let me get a survey real quick. Okay, thank you, Jack, for confirming that. I want to know if you guys want a refresher on the whole IFW. It's the most important document for everything, but I don't want to spend the time if you guys don't need it, because you guys can always revert back to that. So can I get a, if you guys want to just say yes, if you want me to go over the IFW one more time, or no, and I'll skim over it real quickly. So what do you guys want? You guys want to go over the IFW one more time, or just go straight? What's that?
You can skim it.
Skim it? Okay. We'll skim it. See what we got here. Okay, no. All right. So one yes, IFW. Got a couple yes. Okay. You guys, object to us going through it, and we'll go faster than before, of course. So I'm gonna satisfy both together. I'm gonna do it quickly enough where it's not too in depth. Okay. So to begin with, use these buttons. We'll do the loan program. I'm put a 30-year fix. Closing costs. I'm going to pick these lenders and use Loan Shifter, your rate sheet, your experience, your account executive to determine who you want to go with. For this sake, I'm going to go with the one that I have. Let me see here. I want to make sure. So I'm using JMAC tonight. So I'm going to go with JMAC. And once you pick these things here, it should fill in this information here. We're just going to go with this here. It's a purchase. It's a conventional loan with 20% down. No mortgage insurance. We're keep it simple here. I'm going to go to my IFW. And again, I'm going to assume that you guys already fill out all the employment, all these, asset and everything else here on the loan application. On the fee worksheet, I'm going to put Control D for today's date on your keyboard. You hold down Control D. And you do want to put the estimate close of escrow date. We would say that because today we're in March, I'll just say we're going to close at the end of this month. The first payment will be at least 30 days from today, or from the close of escrow date. That would make it May 1st. And your company would fill out if you started the template correctly. All these fees would be associated with our lender pay compensation, so I wouldn't change anything here. And then I would fill in any rebates. I'm just going to say today at 4.25 it's giving me 25 basis point. So it'll give me $600 towards lender's credit. If it's a cost, I'll put it up here. Down here, I just click on the closing escrow fee, pick my preferred title and escrow company. If you actually have the lender fee or the estimate HUD, fill in the actual amount by clicking on this and typing on and actually fill in there. Lender's title insurance, I pick the same thing. If you do not have your preferred lenders listed here, send an email to tc@myequityzone.com and they'll add it for you. Owner's title, I would pick who I want to go here. Then on the city transfer tax, I would just click my city here. I'll just leave the default. On my county, I would put that same county here. And just remember to change the name to reflect whatever city. Usually I just copy this. I'll just put it up here. So whatever shows up there, just copy and paste that there. It just defaults to Sacramento County there. If we have impound in that handout, you would have the monthly impound here for your property tax. And since we are closing escrow in April, our first payment would be in March. Our first payment would be in May. So I would go back to here under my impound for my property tax, pull up my sheet, and it would say that I would need to collect 3 months. So I put 3 months here. For homeowner insurance, it's always 2 months for reserve, for purchase. But if you are doing a refinance, you need to find out what month you're going to close. If we close in March, and then when it expires, meaning their current homeowner insurance policy would expire a certain month. And you just figure that out and put that in there. That's for refinance. Once we have the impound filled out, and not everybody would want impound if they have 10% or more equity, meaning down payment, or if they refinance equity, then they wouldn't be required by the state of California to have one, but they can still have it. Some people prefer to know what their monthly expense is or the housing expense in a monthly format. They can do that. Interest rate, we usually just put 30. That's the most. I mean, if you want, you put 31 days. But typically you would calculate this based upon the closing date. So if we're closing from the 31st, you just take the last day of the month minus the closing date, and then you get the date. So if we were closing on the 20th and there's 31 days in March, then we would just put 20 days here. For homeowner insurance for purchase here, it should always be 12. It requires 1 year to be prepaid in advance. In addition, we need 2 months reserves. For refinance, you leave this blank and then just put in that according to the chart there. So with that, if there's any other fees, you would put it here. If you were doing a home, if there's a home inspection, list the fee here. Even though it's paid by others or paid outside of escrow, you check that box there. And if there's any pest inspection, so forth, you list it here. Any additional settlement charge that's not required as part of the loan, but is part of the fee, the Real Estate Settlement Procedure Act, you need listed here. So once I fill this out, it would give me a purchase price of $300,000. We have an estimate closing of $416.16 with a prepaid, which is your reserve, your first month mortgage payment, your homeowner insurance, your property tax here, and any upfront mortgage insurance premium. And if it's a purchase, sometimes the seller does pay part of this amount here, which is, it'll say paid by seller. Just go up here. If there's anything that's paid, make sure you list it on this side here. And I'll tell you the most customary one in Sacramento County, transfer tax are usually paid 100% by the seller. What I did is just highlight that. I Control X on my keyboard to cut, Control V to paste under my seller, or you can highlight it, right click and cut and then paste. And you need to tab out of it or that OK button won't show up. Just hit tab or click out of it, hit OK. I want to just quickly do these for the other one, which is also the city transfer tax. We also have the homeowner's title insurance that the seller usually pays 100% of. The other one that's customary is they will pay 50-50 for escrow fees. Okay. So those, now that I've allocated the which fee is going to be paid by the seller. This one is multiple 50-50. This one is all by the seller. City and transfer tax here. I go down here, and my my closing cost is still the same. However, $1,724 of that is actually being paid by the seller. And if I do some quick math here, it'll just be about maybe $3,400, just under $3,400 is the closing cost. The difference, I'm sorry, $2,400. That is the responsibility of the buyer. Okay. So when you do see the closing costs, that doesn't belong all to the buyer, not in all cases. And if you do have any seller's credit, make sure you put it here. I usually like to put the up to 3%. Then I would just put $9,000 here. And if they do have earnest money deposit, you can put it here. It'll say cash deposit. And we'll just say they put a $2,000 deposit. Okay. Another place you could put the cash deposit would be on page 2, or I'm sorry, page 3, and you put it here. It's the same thing. You just put the title company name. And it's preferred to put it here if it's already been cashed. If it hasn't been cashed, then you put it elsewhere, the other one here. So show up here. So if I had deleted this, I went to here and I put it in here, it would actually carry over to, actually it would probably, just show it to you. It'll just carry over here to cash deposit. So if you put it there, that's the right way to do it. Put it on the other one. So here, whenever you do the DSP, one thing I just want to caution you guys is if it's a purchase, they have to come in with their minimum down payment. So that minimum down payment right now, we have the cash to close. In addition to the $2,000, right now they're saying to come with $56,000. And not to confuse you, I'm going to take out this $2,000. They're coming in with $56,000 here. Go back to your borrow information and scroll down to here, and their down payment is $60,000. Right now, they need to come in with at least $60,000. So if I go back to my page 4, this is just too much credit, and that would make their required down payment less than $60,000, which is not acceptable. So you would have to reduce that seller's credit. I'll just do it. So $4,000. So we'll do $5,000. So we'll just do it. Seller's credit down, $5,000, and they can probably reduce the purchase price or something like that. All right, so I'm just going to put this back because right now this is okay, even though it shows less than $60,000, because we've already put $2,000, which is our own money, plus 58 will still make it $60,000. All right. Okay, any questions so far regarding the IFW? That was a quick rundown on how to fill out an IFW, but it is part of this here. Okay.
Question on if someone owns their own home and they're refinancing, pulling money out to do some investing, you still have to come up with all the taxes, insurance, and stuff like that.
Well, for the impound account, as long as they have 10% equity in it, you don't have to, and they can choose not to have an impound account. The pros and cons versus the impound account is the lender will actually charge you a fee for waiving the impound. So it costs them, in this case, it will usually cost about 1/8 to a quarter of the YSP. So 12.5 basis point to 25 basis point. So if I plug this in here to kind of put it in perspective, is that it might cost them $600 to waive that impound account. So what I typically advise my client is if they do have 10% equity or plan to put 10% down, set it up, make the first mortgage payment, cancel it, and then they'll get a refund. The only drawback is that they do have to put that money up front, and when I say that money is that prepaid items right here. It's $2,800, and not all of it is prepaid. If you notice up here is $150, $937.50. And sorry guys, I forgot to repeat the question, but the question Bob asked was that if somebody was doing a refinance and they don't want to set up an impound account, are they required to do so? No, they don't, as long as they have 10% equity in their home after the refinance. Okay, so if we look at the 150 plus the 937, we'll call it about $1,100. $1,100 is the drawback that when they close, they have to come in with it to save the $600 in this scenario, but they can get it back. They'll get a refund as soon as they cancel it. So that's a workaround, and they're okay with that. Okay, and let me see here. There is a question. Okay, that's fine. All right, any question with the IFW? And I think once we do the purchase, the refinance, a little bit easier for you guys to understand because it's a lot less things to do. All right, once we fill out our IFW, which is the initial fee worksheet. We call it initial because we usually only give it to them at the first time they call us about loan option. After that, we just give them good faith estimate, truth in lending, and so forth. Okay. So I'm okay with this, and I'm going to actually price something so you guys can understand how this will work. So I'm going to save this. So within Calyx Point, we use the interface and product and pricing. We just select loan shifter. If you guys don't have a subscription to this, it's $69 a month. It's well worth it, in my opinion, instead of going rate shopping on Rate Sheet and Lenders Login. And we manage the database for you on this. So let's just assume that I got this buyer pre-approved back in December, and they've taken 3 months to find a house. The rate has changed, obviously, on a day-to-day basis. So you need to run it again the date that you prepared the disclosure. So at that time, I quoted them 4.25, and today it's going to cost them $5.875 or $1,400 in order to get that same rate. At that time, I was quoting it getting more like a quarter rebate in this example. So at today's rate went up by 1/8 to a 1/4% if they still want that quarter, because this one is not enough as close to that quarter, but it's similar. I would probably quote the same here. So for me, I would probably look at how far off the lender's credit is, and I would explain to them, we can give you the 4.25, but the difference is about 0.8% off. So do you want to spend 0.8 from what I quoted you more in fees? Or do you want the same cost? What's more important to you, Mr. Barrow, the lowest amount of closing costs or the lowest rate or lowest monthly payment? And then you have the discussion with them. So in this case, I'm going to assume that I'm going to give them the 4.375. I click on this field here. And I do want to print this for my own reference. Is you always click this print button here. It'll print the results. I hit open just so I have it when I'm working. I hit save as. So when I save as, this is just our naming convention. So we call everything in groups. So for example, you notice that we call C, it stands for credit. And then we use I for income. Then we use A for assets. So we use those, and then we go down the list for P for property and so forth. So for these things, we call it, the reason why we do that is it groups all of those information together. So all my income, when I open up the folder, all the I's will be grouped together. And then all my credit or my asset will be grouped together. So in this case, if I put M for miscellaneous, and I put LS for loan shifter, and I put results, because this is the results page, and then I just put what rate did I choose, and it'll tell me right here. I put the result for 4.375%. And I just always like to put the date. Now hit save. So that's my result. The reason why you want to save this is when you come back and you're looking at pricing, you want to see what LTV you put it, what loan amount, what credit score you use, did you waive. So right here we waived all impound account. That might have affected our pricing. Whereas, so we want to save this to double check why our pricing might be different today versus when we first initially quoted them. After I print out the result, I do want to click on the pricing adjustment, which is this link next to our lender that we want to use. So I'm going to click on that. And I'm going to hit that little print icon. It'll pull this up here. Typically, I'll change it to, this is the free, or Adobe Acrobat has the reader, and this is the professional. But everything I'm doing can be done the same in the free version, which is the reader. If you hit this little icon, you're able to highlight. So I usually highlight this and I copy the name of the lender. I'll go back up and I'll save as. I go back to my folder. I click this once, it'll copy this name, and then I keep the M, the LS, and the date, but I overwrite this, and I type in pricing, adjustment, hyphen, and if I paste it, Control V, since I've copied the Freedom Mortgage Wholesale in my clipboard, it'll paste it in there. So the name looks like that. Okay. So I have that. The last thing I want to save whenever I'm doing the loan shifter is this rate sheet. To the left of it, you'll see an icon of an Excel spreadsheet or a Adobe Reader icon. And I'll click on my lender. I'll hit open. This will open it up for the spreadsheet. And this is what the lender, if you have this, they will honor the pricing. And that's why we want to save all three. So hit save as. And again, I follow my name convention. Okay. So just to kind of let you know, kind of show you, as you get more documentation from your borrower, this list will grow pretty long, and you want to group those together so all the M's will stay together, and that's the reason why we do that. Okay, so there's a file naming convention for those. All right. So it's important. I want to emphasize you need to save these three because when you ask for help from anybody, people's going to see. Let me see how you came up with the pricing, what adjustment you have. Fill that out. And the second thing is that the reason why I show you this is we use the pricing adjustment, this here, for our anti-steering. With this, it makes your anti-steering job a lot easier. So I'm going to show you that we have picked, and I'm using this highlighting tool, we have used, we're here. So I'm going to quote them a 4.375. Okay. So I'm going to exit my loan shifter, and I'll always click on this sign out instead of this one. So hit the sign out. Then you can hit this button. I'm going to go to my anti-steering, which is my second item from the top here, and make sure that you have everything correct in your master file, because as you create, you copy them. If you make one mistake here, you have to go and fix them on all three different scenarios. So make sure, I call it, make it perfect, on the file that you're going to copy. And if you need to make any changes before you click on these, just go back to the file, borrows information, fill it out, because they'll copy whatever information you have here. Okay, so make those changes as needed. So I'm going to go back to my anti-steering. I'm going to hit create. If I hit create, it'll copy everything that's in my initial one. I'm going to hit edit, and then you'll see this box pop up. It'll say scenario 1. And this is the anti-steering. This is basically your primary file, and this is your other option. So our scenario 1, as long as we're in here, we go back to the fee worksheet. And all we're going to do, guys, are 2 things. We're going to, you know what, let me go back. Let me fix this here. I put the wrong rate. Let me make sure I got the right rate. So because I want to quote the 4.38 and then a rebate according to this pricing adjustment is 0.093 instead of the 0.25 that we got way back when. So I'm going to put 0.093. Okay. So it should be relatively the same here, the 223.20 as here. Okay. Sometimes you're going to get it off because Loan Shifter will calculate. I think there was a point where if you have MI, it would just take the base loan amount instead of the Calyx point. They will take the base loan amount plus the finance mortgage insurance premium. So you might have slight different numbers here, but don't worry too much about it. They do give us a low variance, a tolerance. So this is now the way that I want to see it. I'll go back to my anti-steering. I'll hit create, and I'll hit edit. Go to my fee worksheet, and to do the anti-steering, we're going to pick one above and one below. Okay, so if I go to my adjustment, the one, the easiest for me to explain first before I kind of go the other way is the rate above. The rate above usually always give you more credit, so it'll be a lot easier to explain. So I'll go with our 4.5 here. So I'm going to start with the rate higher at 4.5. When I do a 4.5, it gave me a higher rebate of 0.783. So instead of $223, I get $18.79. So I'm going to put 0.783. 0.783. Okay. And one thing is, so you would hit save. Go back to your anti-steering. And this is your first file. If you want to swap it, making this your primary, whatever's there is going to be the file that you'll be working on. And on here, this is the 4.5. We want to sell them a 4.375. I'll hit create again, and I'll hit edit. Go back to my fee worksheet, and I'm going to change this one rate down. So my rate down is 4.25. So if I go one rate down, no longer am I getting credit. It's actually going to cost me money. Whenever it's red or in parentheses, it's actual cost to the borrower instead of a lender's credit. So we're at 0.587. Okay. Whenever there's a cost, you need to delete this amount here and put it up here where it said loan discount. So my loan discount again is 0.587. Once I fill that in, I go back to my anti-steering. You only need 2, one above, one below. And then you're going to answer these questions. And make sure you're in the right field. One set ARM, adjustable rate mortgage, the other one's fixed. It's going to ask you which one has the lowest interest rate. So go to the interest rate column and take a look at it. Our lowest interest rate is the 4.25, which belongs under the scenario 2 column. So I will select scenario 2. The next question is lowest origination costs. So I'm going to go to my adjusted origination charge, and I'm going to look at the lowest. So this one has a negative, meaning it's lower than these positive number. It belongs under scenario 1. I'm going to go select scenario 1. And the third one is basically the one you chose, the one that borrow primary. It should be the rate in between these two with the closing costs adjust the origination charge in between those two. Okay. So we're going to pick borrow there. That's the anti-steering to give the borrower 3 different choices in rates, in fees. So if the origination charge of the lender's credit is more or less, the settlement charge is going to be effective the same. Okay. Any question regarding the anti-steering? How do you fill that out? Now, I do want to warn you, some lender does this a little bit differently, and I'm going to, as long as you understand how to do it this way, this is the correct way, where probably about 80 to 90% of the lender will accept it. There's a few 10% that won't, and I'll show you the other way that the lender will do it on the lender disclosure. Okay. So I'm going to hit save here. The next field I'm going to go to is GoodFaith Estimate. If you're going to disclose it to them today, click on this and just click today. How or do you plan on sending it to them? If you do email, just put internet. There's other type too, overnight courier, mail, and if you plan to meet with them, do that. But do pick one method. Later on, whenever you have a change of circumstance, then you would redisclose it a second time, and you would put it there. But for tonight, we're just going to prepare the GoodFaith Estimate. The date prepared should carry over from our initial fee worksheet. Interest rate, because I quoted this guy 3 months ago, he went and looked for houses and he finally got a house. This is why I'm disclosing the disclosure signing packet for him. The interest rate is always available through today only. Okay, so you hit today because we don't know what the rate is going to be tomorrow. So you always put it today. Don't worry about the time. The estimate is always good for 10 business days. The easiest way to do is click on today. Move your cursor down 2 weeks because weekends are not included. There's 5 business days in a week, so this would give us 10 business days. Just keep in mind that between today and 2 weeks later, are there any holiday? If any holiday are in between that, you got to move it accordingly to however many days. For example, Christmas. If Christmas falls in there, the 10th day would be you got to move it over 1 because it is a federal holiday. So any date that the bank is closed is pretty much a holiday. So we'll go to 2 weeks out or 10 business days. The rate lock period, we'd put 30 days unless you quoted him something different. So if I went to my pricing adjustment and I noticed that this is a 15-day lock instead of a 30-day lock, I would change that rate lock period. Typically, we just price everything on a 30-day. The days before settlement should always be 21 days. Some prefer 7, some prefer 14, but 21 is the safe date that everybody will accept. Okay. You're going to scroll down here, and unless it's a balloon payment, an interest only, any type of neg-am or anything other than a traditional fixed loan, you need to answer these questions. Can the interest rate rise? That is a adjustable rate mortgage. If the payments are made on time, can the loan balance rise, which is a negative amortization loan? Even if the payments are made on time, can the monthly principal interest and MI rise? And this is where it's tied to the negative AM again. And this is a negative AM. On top of the negative AM, you got a adjustable rate mortgage there too. For if there's a prepayment penalty, check that box there. In today's lending environment, we don't usually have prepayment penalty. But as it gets more lax on the underwriting, they might come back with that for more competitive pricing. Is there a balloon payment? So if you have a loan that is amortized over 30 years, but it's due in 15, so they'll treat it as if your payment are lower because they're doing it over 30 years or 360 payment, and then that would be there'd be a large balance due after 15 years. So answer these questions. And this here, if in this case we said that we're waiving the impound account, but let's say they changed their mind, uncheck that. That means the impound account is included. If that's checked, then that means there is no impound account. So I'm going to say that we do want impound, since my IFW shows we do. I'm going to go down here, and if you if you fill out the IFW, it should carry everything over here. Really not much for you to put in here. But there is a pest inspection fee. If you type it over here, you can just move it up here if you like. If the impound, there are people who have the impound account, but they choose to only impound their property taxes or the homeowner insurance and not both. you can do that. But there are adjustments according to the lenders. So check their guideline. So in this case, I have an impound account that I'm going to include both the property tax and insurance. Make sure you check those boxes. If they have impound for something else, I've never ran into anything where that's other, but there sometimes might be. That's your place where you can impound additional there. And this, you can show this, but we never use it. It's just more work, and we don't need to do it. Okay, the trade-off, and this will just show the difference between a conventional loan versus the FHA loan or the rate and so forth. We just turn it off. That's why we have the anti-steering form. Okay, so once you fill this out, that's your good faith estimate. I always like to hit save every time I move between screens. Then I hit the truth in lending, which is the next one down. You're going to put when you disclose the truth in lending. Same thing with the good faith. I'm just put today. It's going to say what is the disclosed APR, which is currently right here. The current one is shown right here. Before you rush and type in whatever is shown here, hit that calculate button right here on the bottom. Make sure you hit that just to ensure that any number you change, it factor it in. So I'm going to put the rate of 4.454 is what I disclosed today. I'm going to hit calculate again, and it'll show me the difference. As long as it hasn't increased or decreased by 1/8 of a percent, I'm good. I'm within regulation. Okay. If there was, with the annual, the average prime offer rate, this APOR versus APR is different. This is the annual percentage rate. This APOR is the average prime offer rate. I think you click on here, it actually takes you to a website to show you what is the APR. So on here, you can click on it, and I think you just put submit old calculator. Whoops, man. There you go. This is just you know what? I think it's just a change. So right now it's fine. Don't worry too much about this, guys. I'm just going to test it out. So the APO average prime offer rate, you can put it in there. This site's supposed to have it. I just used to bank rate. Let me just show you where. Let's see here. Make sure here. I don't know why they start from the earliest, but you scroll down, you should see it. So here's the average prime offer rate, 3.37. Let me just make sure we're in the right column. Oh, I'm sorry, in 30 years, scroll over. So right here, so it's the bottom right. I know keyboard shortcut, so if you guys want to write this down, if this starts here, and you hold down your control, and you hit your end key, it'll take you to that. So control plus end on your keyboard will take you to there, okay? Let me see what Luba asks here. What if, after looking at anti-steering, my borrower picks a different loan option, scenario 1 or 2? You will have to redisclose. So the question is that if you think they pick one, then you just have to update the good faith, the truth in lending, and the anti-steering, and then you'll submit that. That's funny. She's doing online and she's sitting in class here. That'll work. So so again, the APR right now is 4.43. Do you guys catch that? You guys, because you can always scroll down. But the reason why we have to go this one is a 30-year fix. Oh shoot, this is 50. My fault here. So we'll go down to 30. So I'll go to the bottom here. Just click on that. So it's still 4.43, I think it's the same thing. Okay. So you can put it here, 4.43. The only time this really matters, guys, is when your rate is 1.5% above the average prime offer rate. So in this case, if your rate was at 6%, then it'll be considered a high price mortgage loan. Okay, but we're not that type of business. We don't have that business model. We're actually the opposite. We offer the lowest closing cost guaranteed here. So this date, I'm going to put today's date, and you have to pay attention to that table, because this table is not today. It was yesterday. Okay, and this is, if you notice, it's the weekly average prime offer rate. So this one is yesterday. It's on a Monday. We'll hit calculate again, and right here is not a high price mortgage loan. If you do an adjustable rate mortgage, the adjustable rate mortgage would have a qualified rate that is usually about 1 to 2% higher than the start rate, just because of the potential that it can increase. You need to check your lender to figure out what qualifying rate they would put in there. Fixed rate loan, you don't need to worry about that. If you do adjustable rate mortgage, you need to fill these fields out, the ARM rounding, and I'll just give you an example. You always round it up to the 8th, and it's going up. The first adjustment cap, usually it's a 5%. If we're doing a 5-year fix, it'll be a 60-month fixed period before it'll change. This is the first adjustment cap, usually is at 2%. It'll adjust every 12 months. The life cap will usually cap out at 5% above the starting rate. The margin today, or the margins in today's lending environment, is about 2.25. The index is typically tied with the LIBOR, and right now it's very low, and so I'm just going to go 1%, like 1.1 or something like that. You have an alternate you put there. The floor should always equal the margin, or if some lender, they'll require some other number. So I just put that there. That's how you fill out an adjustable rate mortgage for those that are selling 5/1 ARM. Surprisingly, right now, people are taking 5/1 ARM. For somebody who might be, I'm working with a buyer right now who's planning to move to Chicago, and he said, I'm not going to be here for more than 3 years. Why would I pick a 30-year? So he's buying a house, and that's a good scenario. Another person is they're starting a business, and right now they don't have 2-year employment, so they're using their wife's income only, and they want to refinance. So they said, I'll just do a 5-year. So there are cases where you do want to go with an adjustable rate mortgage. And if you compare a 4 1/4 versus a 5, today it's at 3%. It's a huge difference. Okay. This one we're not going to go over because this is kind of those, remember those toxic loan that you guys talk about back in the NAGAM loan, and the balance increase every year and so forth. This is what you would do. This is the NAGAM. Okay, so on the NAGAM you would do this here. The buy down, the graduated payment, you probably would not do this here. But this is a good program that you guys should learn on the buy down mortgage later on when it's more of a buyer's market, and we'll talk about that. If you have mortgage insurance, make sure you fill this out, particularly for FHA. You'll fill that out, and I'm going to give you an example. So on a FHA, if they put down less than 5%, it's 1.35. That would be for the life of the loan. For 30 years. That changed now, guys, for FHA. If they put down 10% or more, it's only 11 years. And then it doesn't cancel out anymore at that 78%, so leave it blank on the FHA. However, it's a conventional loan. The MI factor is close to 0.96. It'll cancel out at the 78 for a conventional loan. Okay, so make sure you fill that out correctly. Since we don't have MI, I'm going to take this off. And since we don't have ARM, because I want the disclosure show correctly, I'm going to delete all this. If it is a adjustable rate mortgage, make sure you click on that. If they are refinancing, you would uncheck this box and check refinance here. And that's it. You don't have to fill out anything much here. There are one thing that you can do for FHA, because FHA, VA, USDA, those government loans, they are assumable loans. So you can assume it. So if it's one of those government, you can check this box. May, but subject to condition. Okay? But otherwise, just leave it alone there. And even if you don't check it, it's fine. It's not a big deal where it will stop the underwriter from doing it anyways. Okay? So that's your truth in lending. Not very hard, because we've already templated everything. We filled out almost everything for you guys. Right? Last thing, which is optional, not required, but it can pose a problem, is the request for tax returns. You want to pull up their tax return and look at the spelling of the name. It needs to match exactly the way the tax return is. However, if you have their driver license and it has the middle initial, but the tax return they choose not to, the loan document has to have the middle initial because the notary will not notarize it if it doesn't have the middle initial. So we put it on the loan document. And but their title, how they put on public record, can be different too. So there's many different places you have different name. Whatever you do on the loan app, it needs to match the driver license, because we have had people not be able to sign it because the notary didn't want to lose the license, and we're going to do that. So like a common name is John Smith, without the middle initial, anybody can take over that property. So in order for, let's just say that in this case, the tax return is different. I would just check this box, and I would spell it exactly. This is the way it shows on there. So I'll just put DSP, P training file. It's just, I know it makes no sense, but it's whatever's over here. So I was just missing that middle initial, right? So I would do that. And let's say that they had a Social Security number mix-up, or they got a new one, or EIN number, whatever the case is, you would put the correct one here. Phone number, you would put their whatever number you'd like to on here. This one will be different. If the co-borrower name's the same, leave it alone. You don't need to check it. It's only if you want to pull it in from there or not. Same thing can happen with their address. If their mailing address on that, or the previous one, I'm sorry, excuse me. If their present address is different than what's on the tax return, and on the previous, you need to change this. The current one can be wherever they live, but it just needs to show if on that tax return had a different address, list it as the previous address, and then you keep the current here. Okay. Don't fill this out. Lender want to fill it out themselves, so leave it blank there. If they are, let me show you here. We would always check the return transcript. The only time you would check this button, the count transcript, is when they've amended their tax returns. So you ever see the tax return where it's a 1040 with the little X after it? That's an amended form. So you see a 1040X, check this box, and we need to get also the amended tax return in addition to the regular one. But don't check this normally unless you actually have a 1040X in your form. Make sure that you put the date for the years that they file. We're in 2014, so they should have 2013, but not everybody have filed because we have until April 15th. Today's March 4th. So we can put, these 2 years, if you know for a fact that they haven't filed 2013, or you get a return, an error when they try to file it. But you try to do 2 to 3 years. So normally this is what you'll see. And you just put the date, the last month. So that's what it should look like had they filed this year 2013 tax return. Okay. Again, we're in 2014 today. This is optional, guys. The only time you would fill this out is if there's a name change or the address has changed from whatever's shown on the tax returns. And if there was a 1040X. So it's one of those three. Any of those three, it's not and, I'm sorry, or. So one of those three happened, you need to go in here and make those changes. Once we have that information filled out, let me just make here. Okay, so I'll hit save. What I'm going to do is, so I've done with this. There's nothing left. It goes back to the borrow information. So this is kind of like your start page, your home page. So hit save. Whenever I print anything, I like to be at the borrower information page because I'll show you why. When I hit print, nothing shows up in the selection of what I want to print. If I start in my fee worksheet, as soon as I hit print, it'll put my fee worksheet, whatever form that you're in. So when I print, I prefer to just start with my at the borrower's information page. Okay. So when I'm here, I would hit the print, and I'm going to go over the print group. Click on the print group. Depend upon a conventional or FHA, I would pick one of these. This one doesn't say joint, but that's joint because this one's single. So I'm since I have a conventional, there's only one borrower. I'm going to go conventional, loan, single, and it would just list everything for me on what I need to print out. So I'm actually going to hit print preview, and it's going to generate the form that I need. And what I want to do is you can click in twice, 1, 2, and then it will zoom in, and that's as close as you're going to get. Glance over it to make sure that everything's correct, and then you got to hit the next page up here and just glance at it, because if you actually print it out and one thing is wrong, you waste a lot of paper there. Hit next, and all I'm doing is just kind of glance over all this information. Okay. So, and everything looks good here. I'm pretty sure it is. Let's see. I'm going to explain it to you how you explain it to the borrower. So I'm going to print this out here. So one thing I do want to mention is the fee sheet is included in here. I prefer not to disclose our commission. So I will still print it the way it is, but I'm going to remove this here. Okay, I'm going to remove this 1.5, 1.5. For those who haven't heard me say it before, if you notice here, this is a positive 3,600, and this is a negative 3,600, which would effectively zero itself out. So if you remove both, none of the figure would be affected. So we just kind of remove it so we don't have a discussion on our compensation. And it's always nice to say we're not charging anything. So we're not. The borrower is paying our commission. So I'm going to close this out, and I've reviewed the documentation. Everything looks good. I'm going to go back to my fee worksheet. All I'm going to do is uncheck this box. Just remember the number that's in there. Okay. Uncheck this. It will zero this out. That means I have to take this one out and zero that out. So I'm going to hit save, and I'll hit print. And if you ever go here, just deselect it. Go to the print group. Go back to my conventional single. If you don't have, the thing I don't like with the save as PDF is that it'll separate all my legal pages into a separate file and my letter size separately. And I'll show you what that looks like. So if I hit save as PDF, it'll ask me for a password. When I hit save as, you should always password protect it, guys. This has a lot of personal information. So you're going to password protect it with the 9-digit social security number. So whatever the borrower's 9-digit social security number is, without the dashes, so just 9 digits. So in this case, I'm just going to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Hit OK. And when I name it, I always like to just put password is your 9-digit SSN. And I typically put the date. This way, for those that don't have those PDF builder like Adobe Professional or one of those other ones, it has a built-in one. Now, there was somebody that had an issue using that save as with the password. If you ever have that problem, uninstall it, all instances of Calyx Point, and from your computer, reboot it, and then I'll send you a new link. But I think even when we did that, it still didn't work, so I wasn't sure what was wrong. You might have to call Calyx Point. So if it is a known bug, hopefully they fixed it. If you run into that problem, it's not you. I ran into that before. So I'm going to go back to my DSP here. So when I open it, it's going to ask for my 9-digit password. And if you notice, it's only page 1 of 1 because it separates all my legal pages from my letter size pages, and that's why I prefer to use our own. But you see, there's another one here, and the naming said legal and letter. Okay, so I'll open this one, and on here if you download the free Adobe, for those who don't know, just go on Google and type in, and I'll just show it real quick. Actually, if you just go type in adobe.com, the first thing on the home page, it'll say download the free Adobe Reader. So right here, it'll say download, and go to Adobe Reader. And depending upon your system, it'll detect which version you should download. It'll tell you right here, your system and all that. Uncheck this, guys. It's just going to install a lot of bloatware, and then you can install it there. So that free version would have something where it will say comment. You know, there's a little comment tool right here. In that comment, you can highlight it. And this is the other reason why I don't like using this password protected, because I can't highlight it with the boxes. Okay, so but above everything else, security and privacy is the utmost important one. So if you can't highlight, it's fine. Password protected. Okay. So I'm gonna show you the way that I do it, but this way is fine. It's just the likelihood of you getting the disclosure signing packet back with a missing signature is higher if you don't highlight it. So instead of going back and forth, that's why we like to highlight it. But a workaround on this, let me see if it works. No, it won't do anything. So that's one way where you can password protect it. The other way I like to do it is this. If I go back to and what I do is I just save as PDF, but without the password. When I do it without the password, it still separates the letter and legal, but when I open it, I can edit it. There's no security feature there, okay? So I hit this highlight button here, and this is including the free one, and you just highlight. So I want to show you where to highlight. If there's Toolbar, you do that, okay? Now, if you drag too far, what it does is it does that. It kind of figure that or do that. I just hold down Control-Z for undo. Just Control-Z on your keyboard. The little corner one on the bottom left and the Z, it'll undo it. For those who are not too savvy with the keyboard, just go up here to edit and hit undo. And if you forget it, it tells you the little keyboard shortcut up here. Okay. So I'm going to highlight this for them. And I'm going to do it for this sake where the borrow and co-borrow, so you know where it is. Okay. So I'm going to go down to the initial. And I'm going to go to the bottom of every page under the loan app. And this one is the signature. Make sure you put the date. You highlight the date too. Go borrow signature, date. This is for you to sign. You don't highlight it or they'll sign it too. Down here you do want them to sign it. If you have a borrower that is married but only the one of the spouses is going to be in a loan, both spouses have to sign it, whoever's named on the tax returns, even if they're not on the loan. Okay. So we'll do this. For those pages that don't have a signature page, we prefer that they acknowledge it. And how they do that is even on the free one, there's a little thing like this little text box here. Let me show you. There's a thing called typewriter. You'll see it said typewriter. On the free one, it'll say typewriter or it'll say edit, one of those things. But typewriter here, you just click here anywhere, and you just type in all cap, sign here, and just draw a line. And put date. We prefer that, okay? And then if you just after you're done, use this little arrow. Just select on it, right click on it. Actually, I think you go to edit and copy. That way, if you have no spot, you just paste it in. You don't have to type it again. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to go back to my highlighting tool, and this one, the file name is called DSP training file, but that would be the borrower's name. If there's whatever you have a name versus the applicant, highlight their name. It'll stand out a little bit more. This is the anti-steering. This is for the intent to proceed. I'm going to go over how to explain it, but right now I want you to be able to identify where do you need to highlight these fields. It seems obvious, but they're just that one signature spot that you might not be aware of that will cause some heartache down the road, especially for purchases when they have a scheduled close of escrow date. So on the credit disclosure, you're not going to have a space to sign it. So if you just, you can put it down here. If I paste it, we go up here and I paste, I can move it around. And it should be fine. It should look right there, you know. And then if it's too skinny, I can delete this here, make it a little bit. Okay. Then I'll probably just copy that. Control, edit, copy. Go back to my highlighting tool. I'll highlight the name here. And this one, the disclosure notice has many signature fields, so make sure the occupancy is correct. We're going to have them sign here. We want to tell them that we're not forcing you to buy insurance from us. You list whoever you want. Just write in their name, all this here, and have them sign it. And if somebody said, do you need all this information, say no. You already give me your homeowner insurance. You can leave it blank. Fair Credit Reporting Act, you want them signed there. And this only applies to FHA and government loans. Okay, so you're only highlight this if if it's conventional, leave it blank. Don't have them sign that. Affiliated, we are Elite NorCal does own Elite Realty Services, and they have this here. So we just want to let them know that we are owner of Elite Realty Service too. But none of them are tied with any of the fees for the settlement charges. So let's highlight this. Down here, and if they have an applicant co-borrow, you put it there. Standard disclosure. Mortgage loan origination agreement. There is 2 spots for them. And you just got to pay attention to where you need to sign to. So as you're highlighting these things, make sure you sign them before you submit to the processor. Down here, we don't have a signature, so I just typically paste it. What I'm showing you is what mortgage broker is known for full service. You don't have to do all this stuff. You can just hand it to them. But like I said, it not only helped the client to go through the signing a lot faster, but but also makes your job easier down the road later on. Now this one here, it doesn't check, and I don't think we should, once they format it, I couldn't figure out where they put this, but I'm pretty sure it's somewhere easy. But for the meantime, I just need to go and check this box here, the middle one. Okay. So on here, I'll go back to my tools, my typewriter, and I hover over this, and I'll just put an X. Okay. So, and if you forget, you just manually write over it too, but it's the middle option. On here, there's nothing that you would sign on the first one here. We still like for them to initial it on this mortgage loan disclosure statement. And down here, you see this form here. Because we deleted that amount, it will show blank here, received from the credit and so forth. Once we submit it to the lender, this number will show up once we put it in. Okay, so this is not the way you would sign this here. The reason why we did the fee worksheet was to remove that. But the correct way to do the MLDS, you have to put it back in. So when you do the MLDS, another way would have been you print it out on the 1.5 first, and then just print a separate fee worksheet separately, because this is incorrect. So we need to redo this here. Okay. But for the sake of tonight,
this paperwork we need to show our fee or compensation.
Well, the 1.5 should always be there. The only time we remove it is to print out an IFW where it removes that. Because the initial fee worksheet is not a required disclosure. This one is, and this one needs to be shown correctly. So let me back up a little bit here. Is that when you guys print the DSP, print it with the 1.5. When you're done highlighting everything, you can extract that IFW and reprint just the IFW without that fee. Okay, because it does affect everything else. So you do want to leave that there. So on here, this is kind of just let you guys know it should look like this. Print your DSP, and then just when you remove it, just to print the IFW. All right. But I'm not going to start over. You guys get the point here. So I'm going to put paste here. And this one they do sign on here, borrower signature. And right here you want to type in where it says Social Security certification. Most likely they're going to verify through the Social Security card. If you already have it, type that in. If they've already mentioned to you, I've lost my Social Security card, you could have said W-2, tax returns, something that verified their Social Security number. So I would put SSN card, and that's what we normally just do. Okay. Borrow here and date. If there is a co-borrower, you would have two of these forms, one with each of their name on it. If there was two, not only do I highlight this, I highlight their name to show them who signed which form. Okay, so make sure you do that. So this here is our disclosure signing packet, and I'm going to fill out one more form because every lender have their own. So in this example, we're going to use JMAC. And if you guys ever use Chrome, it fills it out here. You can do it the same here, but I'm actually going to open it in here. If you don't know the loan number at this point, it's fine. You just put your borrower's name. I'm just going to keep it consistent here. You know, there's borrower, you can put that. Is say I can remember this here. We'll just put yes. And you fill out in this particular form. What I'm trying to show you is most of them will ask you to do the anti-steering again. Okay, so they ask you to do it twice. One in our thing, but they want it on their form. And this is where I said that typically, if you do the lowest interest rate, the lowest origination, and then you have your rate. So you should have 3 different rates. The safe bet is you just go with the lower rate and your rate. Okay, so here's in this example is that I'm going to pull up our DSP. So here's our DSP, and we have a rate of 4.5, 4.25, 4.5, and 4.375. This is our chosen rate. So I'm just going to highlight this for you here. This is our chosen rate. So we're at 4.375. So the lowest interest rate is going to be your rate. Okay. The lowest, the loan with the lowest interest rate without negative amortization is again your rate. Instead of the other 3 where they do 3, this is the one that will be accepted through all the lenders. You do it the other way, you might get a kickback. This one would be the higher rate, so we're going to go with the 4.5. Origination and discount points. Okay, now with those, you're just going to go down to adjusted origination right here. Whoops. So we're going to put our 1521.80, and then we'll do it again. And then this 4.5 is a negative 134.20. So that's what it would look like. Okay, and then you're applying for our lowest rate, 4.275, with the 1521. So all of the forms are going to look something like this. You're just going to see all 3 of your rates except for one higher, and follow that format, and then you're fine. But our anti-steer can go a little bit more. Do make sure you put a little box. Again, go to your tools, and under our typewriter, where am I here? Oh, they won't let us do. There you go. Just check. You gotta click on it. Okay. So we're gonna fill those out. Fill out your name. Entity, it would be your Elite NorCal or your ERS nationwide. And the license number, you can get this information from our Calyx Point. If you go page 4, on the bottom, it has the NMLS number here. And actually, let me show you what the BRE number would be. Where can I show you? Let me see here. So you see on the top of every page, on top of every single page, you'll see there's the BRE number and the NMLS number, not only for the company, but for yourself on every single page. So if you ever need to get that license number, just copy it from here. So we'll put this as the BRE number here, and the address. This is your borrower's name and today's date.
So once the borrower gets this, like when you email it to them, they have to print it out and then sign it and
Yes.
bring it back to the office or bring it to me somehow?
Yes. So you're filling all this out here. Most of the time, we just email it to them, and then it's secure. That's why we password protect it. But if they come to the office, you would print it out and you would highlight it instead of digitally, just use the real highlighter. And when you're doing it and actually physically highlighting it, use two different color and use light colors. So yellow, don't use those purple or blue. When you scan it, it'll block out everything. So like a very light peach or like a very light pink, those work. But any of those green, purple, or blue, don't highlight with those. So once you fill this out here, this is the only form that most lender will require you. The other one are pretty self-explanatory, and they look like this. Most lender will have you fill out another form. Let me try to scroll down here. The other additional form would look like this, but on their form, the Social Security number certification. And you just fill out the same thing, put in their name, Social Security number. Okay. So when you meet with a client, don't think the DSP is all you need. Go and our back office would have all the different lenders' disclosure. Fill it out, print it out, and then make sure you have these in addition to our traditional brokerage disclosure. Right. So I'm going to do a little check real quick. How are you guys doing, guys? All right. Any question so far? Need to slow down. All right. So I'm going to go pull back to our checklist here. So the Form 1008, I think we stripped it just because it confused loan officer more than anything, but I'll show you what it looks like, the transmittal summary. Because when we print it out with the lender, with the borrower to sign, it just confused them, so we stripped it out. But when they do submit it, the processor do, they actually include it. We talked about good faith, the truth in lending, the MLDS, the print groups, additional broker lender disclosure. I'm going to cover the needs list along with how to open escrow. Okay. So before I move forward, there is a question. All right. Sounds good. All good, Gilbert. We are now going to, I'm going to show you the 1008. And what the 1008 is, if you give me a loan scenario, I would say give me the 1008 and I can figure out what you're trying to do. And you can do the same. The 1008 is a summary of what the loan's all about. You know this borrower information page that you guys see here? When we print it out, it's a form. So if we go to print, there's a transmittal summary. It's on the bottom. It should be the default tab that pops up forms. And there's a transmittal summary. The only time that you would use the combine is when there's two non-married spouses or non-married borrower and co-borrower that are doing the loan together. For example, brother, sister, father, and children, whatever, you would use the combined one. But we would do the transmittal. And I'm going to hit, actually, I like to pull it on the PDF. So I'm actually going to save. So this is what is called the 1008, which is the transmittal summary. And you'll see that it was named after the Fannie Mae Form 1008 right here. So we call it just the 1008. Okay. So up on top, it'll say the borrower's name, what our subject property address is, what type of property they're buying, and if there's any additional, kind of a review or anything that we need to know. Mostly this applies to the condo project. So if we're doing condos or townhouses or planned unit development, we need to make sure we pay attention to that. Occupancy status, primary, second investment, how many units, what the purchase price is, what type of loan we're doing. Is it adjustable balloon or anything like that? Loan purpose. If it's a first and if there's a second loan, what is that amount? Or are we doing a second mortgage and not a first mortgage? If the second is owned, who's it owned by? Are we doing a buy down? Are we a broker or seller or correspondent? This is our loan amount, the monthly payment, our interest rate, term. This is the name of the broker. And once we kind of put through the underwriting or it goes through the lender, they would use it. They put this information here. We would never have anything here on our broker end here. Income, what they're using, the debt to income ratio is here, front end, back end, along with their loan to value. And you guys know what the difference between a CLTV, TLTV, HCLTV, and HTLTV? You guys know? Okay. So a loan to value is you take the loan amount, in this case $240,000, and we're going to divide it by our appraised value, or the lower of the appraised value or the sales price, the lower of the two, and we come up with our loan to value. Now, if I had a second mortgage here for, let's just call it $30,000, okay, which is 10% of my $300,000. So if I had one, let's call it $30,000. If I had a $30,000 second, my combined loan to value would then be 90%. But let me show you here. So we'll call it 90. And the HTV is actually the home equity line of credit, the maximum line of credit. So for example, let's say I did have that $30,000 line of credit, but I only use $15,000. So my loan to value here, because I only $15,000, would be 85%. Because I only use 15. But my actual HCLTV would be 90, because I can draw up to $30,000. Okay, but currently I'm only using 85% of that. But there is a difference between the HCLTV and the TLTV. Instead of calling combined, some people call it total loan to value. So that's where the CLTV and TLTV comes into play. Okay, and the H is when there's a home equity line of credit, and then you would do that. This here, guys, is always where they live. People confuse this all the time. Where is it? Borrower's primary resident. They think that this is the amount for whatever subject property that we're doing. So if we're doing an investment property, this will always be where they live. It's not for the subject property that we're refinancing or purchasing. Okay. So the present housing, proposed borrower. Okay. And so the present is here. They put that in there. So you'll see a lot of this information, and actually, I think they got smart. Let me just make sure. If you do none, I'm wondering if they changed this wording. I noticed that they underlined it now. So it might have got smart a little bit, but we'll find out, okay? But this is always on your primary. Read that primary resident here and the present housing here. The investment, if it is an investment, it would show up here, because if we're buying an investment, we would take 75% of the rental. So keeping the math simple, if we're going to rent out for $1,000, we would only use $750. If our mortgage payment is going to be $900, we'll see a negative $150 right there. Okay, so this would be our, so if our investment of say negative $150, this will always be where we live. Okay, so, and then I'll show there. This is all of their other monthly income. And then this here, if they're waiving escrow, you will see that they would put no. This is where you will see if they want to waive escrow or not. If it's a drive-by appraisal, it would call exterior only. If it's where they inspect the property, it will be called exterior interior. No appraisal is when they just use the AVM, whatever the data supports in that area. Okay. And then if you do manual, you see here AUS stands for Automated Underwriting System. DU is Desktop Underwriter, and this is Loan Prospector. Another one that they use for Ginnie Mae and so forth is AssetWise. You probably won't see that there. But it should always say Approve Eligible. If you don't have Approve Eligible, the underwriting engine has determined there's some risk factor, and it needs some manual underwriting. So if you see anything that's other than Approve Eligible, it's probably going to be manual underwriting. This one, by default, Kaylee's point will just pull in the credit score here, but you have a section where you can type in whatever you want for the comment too. All right. This would have our information, the process information, and this is essentially the story of your loan to the underwriter. If they look at it, they can see what you're trying to do, and then everything behind it supports the story. Okay. So that's called the underwriting transmittal summary, and that's the 1008. You guys have any question on that one? Okay. We're right on time here. We're going to do the needs list, and I'll show you how to open escrow. Okay. Once you have prepared your disclosure signing packet, before you meet with the client or you send it out to the client, you want to prepare a short list of items that are still missing, or the documentation they provided is missing page 1 of 6. It was not legible, anything like that. So I'm going to give you a sample email. So Amy is one of our loan processor, and she would send out, the reason why I see it purple is the way Google does it. I don't know how to turn it off. You can turn it off. The way Google does is when there's duplicate information, they just highlight it purple. But the red is actually red. What we did was that our initial list was just the items in black. You know, this purple is supposed to be black. And as they send in information, we want to update it. Said, yes, we got your pay stub, but we're missing the second pay stub. We're missing, 2013 W-2s. So we want to put comments and update that original list and tell them we did get it, but we just need to, we're still requiring additional supporting documentation. So this is what's called a needs list. Just always have a working needs list. And for those that like to use the system, there's one built in. So if you hit this little side panel, there's a checklist. It's like a little loan checklist. You can use this as you get stuff in, just click on it, and it'll check the stuff off here. And you can print out this needs list, this loan checklist, if you like to. So on here, you can just hit print, go up to your, let's say, tracking, and, no, not tracking. Let me just look here. I think it's, you know what? Actually, no, that's not it either. Let me preview this here. Actually, you can, a document request report here, but it actually doesn't do this here. So I'm going to get back to you on that one. I know our processor knows how to do it. But here, if you don't do that, just go ahead and email seems to be the best for us. It's quick, easy. You guys can edit those things. So make a template. This is our template. It'll have ERS and it has the corporate here. But we'll when you guys can use this software if you want to piggyback off our main account. It's called MPC, Mortgage Planner CRM. It is quite expensive. It's about $85 a month. But you got to pay it 1 year up front. It's about $1,000 to start. But I think we got it. It's like $1,200. The reason we say $1,200 is there's a setup fee for like $200, and then it's $1,000 thereafter. But I think the discount is like $900. But it does more. We'll talk about that in a different video. But this is a needs list. So you would update your needs list and tell them that what they're still needing. Within that email, send out the disclosure signing packet in that email. So when they send back the signed disclosure, they'll include all this missing documentation too. Okay. So you'll hear our process say quite a bit. Did you send out the needs list to the borrower? Can I see your needs list? That's what she's talking about, is your checklist, your loan checklist. Okay. And for those that don't have something like this, we've got it in your Dropbox. Go to your Dropbox, the one I gave you that link. In the Quick Start Guide intro packet, there is a elite intro packet and one for homeowner, one for renter, and then there is one that is called, let me see here. Actually, it's in part of the Quick Start Guide, but in the Quick Start Guide, we're updating this, you'll see it, but in the Quick Start Guide, I believe, let me look here. On 16 of page 35, there is a, you can copy and paste this. On the one that we're going to send out, you can copy and paste this. It'll say to begin your loan approval process. Just copy this here, and that'll be your checklist. This is exactly what I just showed you. If you take a look at this list, it's exactly this list right here. It'll say to begin your loan approval process. And of course, you just delete the word wage earner, but you would copy and paste however many different type of bar you have. Okay, and then you can just put your fax number there. So that's your needs list. I want to show you how to just do that. Lastly, we're going to cover opening escrow. Whenever you do disclosure signing packet, that's your cue when you meet with the client, if you're doing the refinance, to open escrow, because it takes them anywhere from 24 to 72 hours to get it, which will be roughly the time that your client would take to sign that and send it back to you. So by the time they send it back to you, you would have got your escrow open along with your preliminary title report. Most lender will not even review or register your loan unless it has a preliminary title report in it. That goes for refinance. Purchase, the buyer would always, or the seller would always provide it for us. Okay. So how do you open escrow? It's you just go to Kaylee's point here. There's a little form, excuse me. It's a request for title. So if you scroll down here on the left-hand side, it will say request for title. If you can't find it in your left-hand panel because maybe you were messing with the organizing the scroll bar here, the navigation panel, you can always go up to the forms on the top, go down to request for title commitment. Okay. Once we get here, you can use our Rolodex and show you here. Whoops. So there is, you see this little Rolodex right here? It's a Cardex. If you hit Cardex database, and you can add and remove from here, but please don't delete other people's contacts if you don't need it. You know, you can update it, but you can sort it by category. So if you're looking for title and escrow, we'll just put escrow and title here. I'll hit search. If I leave it blank, it will show these here. You know, not to favor anybody, just pick anybody. So we'll just pick anybody here, and you hit select right here. Once you open it, and it'll fill it in for you. Okay, so if you're doing it for the first time, I recommend don't put it here, but open the Rolodex and then create a new one by hitting new and then fill out here. When you're done, hit save and close, go back into it and hit select. Okay. Actually, when you hit new, I want to let you know, please select the category so it puts it in the correct one. And if there isn't the correct one, you can always hit new by hitting this category and hit add, and you can put a new category in. Okay. But please do fill that out and fill out as much information you can. It will help others. All right. Once you fill this out, it should import everything. If you click on it, it'll put today's date of when you're requesting it. Just make sure you change your name here. And this should carry all over as long from the main borrow page. If you have it, it should already filled out there. If you do have the person, the contact person, when it said owner's name and phone number, put the contact person, not necessarily the person who owns the property. Just if it's the listing agent that's going to let the appraiser. Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? Back erase all that. I was thinking about appraisal order. So scrap that. So do put the owner's name and phone number here. Okay. And it should carry, I guess it didn't. So go ahead and just type it in, you know. This, if it's a refinance, and again, the only time you're going to open escrow typically for refinance. So we would put the name of the first mortgage company. I typically just go to page 3. And in here, you would have the mortgage company name. I would just double click on it. In this case, I'll just double click on it, and it'll say, like, you know, I'll just call it BRS. Okay, so copy that. So I just copy this. There'll be some weird number like that. So I just remember Bank of ERS, but I just copied the account number. I'll just put this so we have something here. So I go to here, I paste the account number because they need to order the payoff when you're doing a refinance. They need that account number to order the payoff. And I'll just type in. Okay. If there's no second mortgage, I just put NA, or I can delete it altogether. If you have a rush, just put it here. Something like that. Make sure you be very specific with date and time that you need it by. All this stuff here, you put your information here. And even if you forget, this is designed to for the processing to receive it anyways. So if you forget to change it, the processing will get it. Okay. And depending upon if you're doing a first or second, most of them would be full policy. Some of them, if you're doing a second, you can put limited policy, but most of the time it's full policy. When you're done with this, you just hit print, and it's email as PDF. It'll open up your email. Just don't protect it. There's really nothing private besides the phone number there. I don't think they have Social Security. Date of birth is there, but hit OK. In this case, I don't have an email. This is one of the training computer, but it'll pop open your email, it'll insert the PDF, and then you just type in your email there. They have this here to request for title. It's supposed to go through their system or something here, and you know, like this, like they integrate it. I haven't tried it. I'm pretty sure we can do it. So, like for example, First American Title, you probably can order it. I have no idea. You guys can play around with this. Something new. I actually just noticed that button right there, but it's probably integrated just kind of like a pricing engine. Okay. So send it to them. They open escrow. By the time you get your disclosure signing back, then you should be able to, submit it to processing. So the last thing I'm going to go over is how I explain the disclosures to my client. I want you to read it in detail at least once, but I'm going to do it the way I do it to my client. Okay. So here's how I do it here. So this is the one, it's there in front of me, and I'm going to go back to page 1. So it's upside down, and you guys should probably learn how to read upside down because they're probably sitting across from you. Say, Mr. Barr, you're borrowing $240,000 at 4.375 for 30 years with a fixed rate. You're buying this property in Sacramento 95828. Take a look at it. I see it's a 1 unit, and we're going to be doing it. We're going to get the $6,000 from checking the savings. I don't know how you're going to hold title, but we'll determine that in escrow. Take a look at the spelling of your name. We got it from your driver license here to verify your Social Security number. Make sure your phone number is correct, your date of birth. It shows that you're legally married. You have no children. You've been here for 2 years. Can you look at that address there? If your mailing address is different, make sure you put it there. And don't sign it right now. We're just going to go through everything. And then once I've explained everything, you can go and just sign where I highlight it. And on the bottom, you'll initial those pages. So on here, I see that you work for here. You've been here for the job for 3 years. You've been in this line of work for 20. You are officially known as this title. This is your work address. You've also worked here in the past. From this date to this date, your monthly income is this much. And your title is within the same line as for here, and this is the phone number. You can take a look at that. Make sure I have a 2-year employment history for you. And here is the income. It's not going to look like what you normally get, but this is just the way that we calculate your income. There are overtime bonuses that we average over 2 years. So again, this might not be what you earn, but this is how we calculate the income. And then on here is what we show up on your credit report as what your housing expense is. This is what your new payment is going to be. This proposed, if we're doing an investment, will be your new payment for your investment property. This is always going to be for the current where you live. Okay. And if there's any additional income we're using, we'll show it down here. And if there's a B, it belongs to the borrower. C belongs to the co-borrower. Mr. Borrower, you've already put in $2,000 with this title company. We'll definitely consider that towards the cash contribution when we close. All this asset we're using for verification. You might not see some of your bank statement on here because the more we document, the more paper trail we might have to do. And with these accounts, we already have enough, so you probably don't see a lot of the other one. But if you really want to see on paper what your net worth is, and some people do, they care about what the net worth is, I can add it on there, but just be aware that we might have to paper trail every single deposit that you put into that bank. So it's up to you. And then down here, this is all the real estate that you own. Any retirement account, we only take 60% because if you withdrew it beforehand, we can only get penalized 10%, and then your taxes. This here, if you have owned any of this is what we wrote down. All these are from liabilities that show up on your credit report. This is the balance here in the monthly payment. Anything with an asterisk next to it is what we're going to pay off in the refinance, and we're always going to pay off your current mortgage here. Down here is all the property that you own. We only have spot for 3. If we own more, we have another page for that. And these are all the amount. And again, these numbers are what we use for underwriting, not necessarily what you actually file and you collect in rent and what you profit. This is a summary of what's going to happen when you buy the house for $300,000. There's about $28.50 in prepaid items such as your property tax, your first mortgage payment, along with your homeowner insurance. Your closing cost equals to $44.92, but luckily your seller's going to pay $17.24. That leaves you with only about maybe $2,700 worth of closing costs. But if you add up the $300,000 to prepaid, the closing costs, in order to settle this loan, we need $307,000. Out of that $307,000, the seller paying $17.24. You've already deposited $2,000. The seller's going to give you another credit for $5,000. We're going to get a loan for $240,000. At the close of escrow, you should have to come in with no more than $58,618 because we tend to overestimate on your closing costs. So be prepared to write a check for that. Make sure you check these questions. These are the ones that you answer yes or no during our interview. Make sure those are correct. If you don't like to disclose your ethnicity or your race or your sex, just check this box here. Otherwise, I would have to guess. And then just, again, just we'll wait till you sign there. This one, we're going to verify your tax return and make sure that the spelling, the Social Security number is correct. If there was a 1040X amendment, there would be a box right here. And just make sure you got the right year here, sign that. And if your wife's not here, go ahead, or your spouse not here, go ahead and sign that there. Your truth in lending, this is just the cost of to do the loan. If you would buy cash, whatever you borrow, $240,000, that would be the cost. There wouldn't be any financing tied with the loan. So this is to represent if I were to take the same payment. Right here, your mortgage payment is $1,585. This includes your taxes, insurance of $387.50, but your principal interest is $1,198. Your interest, your note rate, what you're paying interest on is 4.375. You might wonder why is this 4.45 is different or higher than this one. The reason why is if I kept my payment the same at $1,198, and if I took my loan of $240, and there's $4,000 worth of closing costs, I take the same variable as this of $236 because mine is my closing costs, and I take my payment along with $360. In order for me to keep the payment the same, that rate has to be 4.45. It's a mathematical thing to show you that if somebody charged you $10,000 worth of closing costs, they wouldn't give you $240 and ask for $10,000 back. They'll give you $230, right? So when you do that, this APR would increase. The whole purpose of this is kind of like your MSRP on a car lot. What is your suggested retail price? They mark it up and all that amount, right? So this is your sticker price. So you can take this same document down to the broker down the street and just look at this number, and you can see who's charging you more fees if they're offering the same rate. So that's what that's meant to be. But if you want to break it down, that's kind of the formula. Most people don't care, but there's some guys that will be technical and say, how do you come up with that? So as long as you guys remember this 4 variable, you got your loan amount, your interest rate, and your term. In order, if you got those three, you can figure out your principal and interest payment. The math just works backwards. Is that if you actually if you keep everything constant and you solve for the rate, but instead of, if you replace the loan amount by this number right here, replace the loan amount, instead of 240, replace it with that, then you'll solve for the APR. That's what the APR is. Okay. And learn to explain the APR, because most people don't understand it. There's people explain many different ways. My thing where people click is the MSRP on a car lot. People kind of get it when I say that. They're like, okay, it's like, you know, shopping for cars, but in this case, shopping for loans. Okay, so you go over this here, and you go over all the check thing here, and say this is not a variable rate, it's a fixed loan. The filing fee is about $105 in Sacramento County. We overestimate it to be about $150. You are buying this property. There's no prepayment penalty. If you close this loan, there's no refund on any of the finance charges. On here, you are required at any given time, as long as you have this loan, to have property insurance. If there's any gap, the lender will force insurance on you, and it's very high. It's about maybe 4 to 10 times more than what you're used to paying. Okay, and so this one is we're always required for property. With this government loan, it is assumable. A good case would be when the rate goes up to 8% 10 years down the road. So the seller might want to buy it and keep your 4.25% rate. You can do that as long as they qualify with the lender's condition. But this one is not assumable because it's conventional. These are all estimate, and so everything, the date, the numbers, all estimate. Anti-steering, right now we're going to go with 4.375, but Mr. Barrow, I want to show you that you can get a lower rate, but it's going to cost you a little bit more. So right now we've got you coming in with 58. If you want a lower rate, just come in with 60,000. If you want a lower cash to close, you can get a higher rate. But the problem, Mr. Barrow, is that you need to come in with at least 60,000. So even if I offer you this lower closing cost, we can. It's just the seller's giving you so much credit. Okay. The intent to proceed is that this estimate is good for 2 weeks or 10 business days. The rate is only good for today, and we will always check your rate before we lock it. On the authorization, we've already requested your authorization full credit, but right now we just need to formally disclose it to submit to the lender. Patriot Act after September 11, 2001. Before then, you didn't need any photo ID or a lot of verification, but now we do. So that's why we ask for your driver's license, Social Security, and so forth. Your credit score that we use for the decision of this loan is 720. This is how they determine it. If you have any issue, you want to dispute it, go ahead and go here. I can't give you a copy of your credit report, but you can get one free online here at annualcreditreport.com, because we paid for the credit report to a credit agent to use it for your loan, not for you. Okay, and so again, you can't give your borrower a copy of the credit report, even though they pay for it. And then, so notice of home applicant. This is saying that you know, everything is strictly based upon the accuracy of the credit report is based upon the credit profile. Here's the contact information for them to dispute with any of those credit bureau. And this is just to say that they receive a copy of the disclosure, not the credit report. This is going to be your primary resident. We're not forcing you to buy any home insurance. Feel free to write whoever you want to purchase insurance from, property insurance. And then we don't discriminate based on the Fair Credit Lending Act. For FHA loan, I just want to let you know they do charge a full month worth of interest. So even if we close by the first of the month, you still got to pay the remaining of the month. Government loans, here you can refinance with the Department of Veterans Affairs, so just read that with the privacy disclosure. Affiliated business arrangement, again, we have no other interest in the settlement, but we do have another company called Elite Realty Service that does our real estate. For this, it reiterates the term for 244.375 for 30 years. Your monthly payment, principal and interest, will be $1198.28. It does not include your impound account there. Our mortgage broker's fee can range anywhere from 0 to 3%. We're very low, and don't worry about it. Our lender actually pays our compensation. You don't pay anything for our compensation. And that's only true if you do lender paid. If you do borrow paid, then you can't say that. Application fee, there is no application, so there's non-refundable. We're not asking you to put any type of deposit here. And we are a mortgage broker. We're not a direct lender. These are all just standard disclosure. Go ahead and take a time to read that there. For our relationship, we are independent contractor, And before we used to get compensated by you, the lender, or both. Right now it's either one or the other. And Mr. Barr, I'm not going to charge you anything. Lender's going to pay for my compensation, so you don't have to worry about that. Equal Credit Opportunity Act is, we don't discriminate. We just usually use your credit score, and that's what we base your rate upon, on the risk that we have to take, the lender has to take. What we do with your personal information, we always password protect all your electronic documentation. If you see anything that has personal information coming from me by email, it will always be password protected with your 9-digit Social Security number. Anything that we have in the file cabinet to protect it from prying eyes, such as housekeepers or anything, that we put everything in the storage, a lock desk, with a key, and that's to follow the regulation. And to take a look at here, if you don't want us to disclose anything, check where you feel like it. But we don't sell your information at all. You do have a right to receive a copy of your credit report within 90 days after you pay for it, so you get a full copy of that. Servicing disclosure, we do not service it, so make sure you do not mail your mortgage payment to us. You'll get a mortgage statement and a coupon within about 30 days after we close escrow. The mortgage loan disclosure, again, it discloses all the term, and it breaks down where the fees are. We've already went over that with you before, and usually I start with the fee worksheet when I start all this here, and I would have said we would have went over here, but they just put it in different boxes. But if you guys happen to just say, well, don't worry about this, this is a little confusing, it's all the same fee, it's just I'll break it down a little bit easier for you. So down here, we're getting a loan for $240, and as the states, let's see here, down here we're buying it for $300. We're putting down $60,000. The total fees and settlement, including all the prepaid and everything, is about $73. And if you add all of the deductions here, we're at $87. The credit, meaning my down payment, my seller's credit, the sellers, what they're paying 50% for. Then what you need to come up with closing at $58,618. Payments $11.98. Here's your interest rate, again disclosed. This one, when it shows correctly, it would show the credit. It'll show the what we're getting charged, our origination. Let me show it to you just correctly. Let's make sure. This is the old one. You guys shouldn't be using that one. You shouldn't see it anyways. But on this one, here's the new one. So when we actually put that money in there, it'll show that we're keeping $3,600, which is 1.5%. And this is.
Will eventually see that when they sign it, right?
Yes, yes, they will. That's the correct. They'll see it. Mm-hmm. But it's so this is what they're really getting, the credit, $3,800. We keep them $3,600. That's why they get the $200 left over. Okay. So and the way that I will explain it, and this is a good time. I'm going to segue back over here. So before, this is my first document. Before I even go to the DSP, I pulled this one out first. I said, okay, so here's what we're doing. Based upon our consultation, it feels like 30 years is a good fit for you. So here's a 30-year fix. As of to date, I can't quote what tomorrow's rate is going to be or yesterday's rate, whatever it is at the time I drew this up for you. And it might have changed by the time we're done talking. So here, as a 4.375, I can give you a credit of $223. There's a processing fee of here for $750. That's not my commission, just goes to processing. Underwrite charge $995. And you go down this here, and you say anything. The only thing that in parentheses paid outside of closing, except for this lender's credit, that's just a credit to show you that. But when we are this bottom number on the bottom that the cash you close, these are in addition to that you're going to pay before we even close. And if you decide to cancel, they're non-refundable. You've already spent that money. So it's called paid outside of closing. We got the $550 appraisal fee, the credit report, which you've already paid. And in the closing, right now, you'll see that the seller's paying half, and you're paying half. And then the $625 doc prep fee, notary fee, and the notary fees overestimate. We only usually is about $125, $150, but we like to overestimate everything. The lender's title insurance is about $454, endorsement about $25, and our courier fee is about $50. The title insurance is being paid by the seller. It's $1,082. The recording that the county charges is $105. The transfer tax, which is required, and the seller's paying for it, is $165 by the county and by the city. And these down here are your prepaid items. This is not part of your closing costs. So anything from the reserves on down, this is stuff that the lenders required you to pay in advance. And if you're a homeowner, you would have paid this anyways. So it's not part of the closing costs. We're going to set up, in order to pay 1/12 of your mortgage payment or your homeowner insurance annual payment, along with your property tax per month. This is what we need to set it up to have enough by the time it comes due. This is the overestimate for 30 days. If we close later in the month, it might be just 1 day. And we do require you to pay 1 year in advance here. So if you notice, Mr. Barrow, up here, this is the only thing that's going to us. So the lender pays us for the other one, and everything else, I want to let you know from here on up, if you go to any other lender, all these remains the same. Because they're using the same title company, use the same escrow company, the same county, the same city, all those are the same. So when you go compare, the only thing that will change are these fees up here. Okay. Then down here, to sum it up, we're doing $300,000. Here's your prepaid items. Here's your closing costs. Seller's going to pay 17 out of this amount here. Your loan amount is this much. We've already got the cash deposit. Here's the seller. So here is that. And here's your payment is going to be there, and your total principal and interest here. If you're ever curious what those legend mean, it's down here. So all those acronyms you can just refer down to here. You go over this. This is the longest part of the consultation. Is that going to ask you so many questions? Why this fee? Why that fee? Okay. You start this off here, and we pick up where I showed you. Is that the MLDS will look like this? Okay. So they will see it, and you will tell them this is, don't worry, this is coming from the lender. So they give you this credit. And say, I can't reduce it, is something by the law as of January 10th, January 2010, we have to make a pre-arrangement with the lender, and we can't adjust that until maybe once a year or so. Right? So I'm here, and I would have them sign here. I go over this. If it's refinance, you can put the lien, but most people don't. I teach you not to. It's fine right there. There's no balloon payment, and down here is none of the fund will be coming from us. We're a broker. We're not a direct lender. Okay. So this is our commission here, and then you would just sign this here. Fair lending notice. The fair lending notice is that we do not discriminate based on race, color, religion, sex, marital status, domestic partnership, national origin, or ancestry. We have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that we provide you with the best loan option, but at the same time, we have a fiduciary responsibility with our lender to not commit fraud. So we'll make sure we're honest and upfront and have our integrity, but we do have a relationship with you and the lender. And I've just verified your Social Security number. Here this is, and you just do those. And then you pull up, and on behind that would be your lender disclosure, which is here, and you just pull it up and say, the lender that we're using, in this case is JMAC Lending, they required, I've already disclosed this for you, but they want it on their letterhead, so I have to disclose again. The rate you're going with is 4.375. There's a lower option, but we're going with the 4.375, and that's all it states, so please sign this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get all your documentation that you brought with you, based on the needs list. So why don't you sign it? I'll make a copy, I'll scan it, and I'll go. And that's usually how the consultation goes. Okay. So that's kind of tonight is how do you prepare it, how do you explain it, and then how do you get it to the next step. The next step that we're going to do next week is how do you, once you got everything signed, how do you submit it to central processing to get it to underwriting to get your loan approval. All right. So I'm going to take a second here to just check any question and answer anything here. I'll hang out until 9 o'clock. And sorry, guys, for going a little over. I appreciate you guys staying, and I'll hang around till about for another 10 minutes here. All right. You want me to stop it here? You're good, right? Stop it.
Yeah, nice.